Hey friends. So, something I've been struggling with lately, and I wanted to share some things with you that some realizations and some understandings and some things that I've always known and I've relearned again. But at a very young age, we're so conformed to what our parents think and feel about us. When we are creating our little ego self, it is created by the relationships we have with our parents, our siblings, the world around us. And when it isn't warm, loving, supportive relationships, there's a lot of judgment that gets passed. Now, your parents may not have meant to judge you. Your parents may not have meant to create that complex within your mind, but it creates old tapes. It creates tapes that we run in our head and we judge ourselves. We probably judge ourselves far worse than we judge anyone else in the world. And that's a sure sign that it's a conditioning that we've learned very young. And we've taken these standards that our parents have tried to hold us up to and created these judgments how we're not meeting those requirements, so to speak. So I want you to really think about ways you judge yourself. Do you not do things perfectly? Do you think you fail at everything? Do you feel like, oh, I don't have a good enough job, I don't make enough money, I'm overweight, I'm not pretty enough, how do you judge yourself? And I really want you to take a second and think about it right now. I'm sure there are many that may have popped up because that's how a lot of us work. Now, the judgments may have supported our growth in a sense of, we work hard, we do things on time, we're efficient. It may have created good work ethic within us or other types of ethics. But in reality, it doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us because we're chasing the elusive carrot that we're never going to find. We're never going to get there. And so it feels like we are never going to be successful. And that creates this idea that life is hard and life doesn't reward us, that there's no joy because we are simply not enough for this world because we have not done A, B, and C. And I really wish that when you see these things about yourself and these judgments, that you see them with an open compassion and an understanding that you may not have created the judgment, someone else may have. And while having the judgment itself is not your judgment, you've adopted it from whomever gave it to you. But as an adult, we have the ability to change that, to shift that thinking. And I know you're like, how in God's name am I going to do that? Because it's like, it's hard. It's hard. Friends, I know. I have spent my whole life dealing with them internally. So what do you do? How do you fix it? Where do you go from here? You begin, I think, by challenging, first you begin by understanding whether it's your belief about yourself or not, whether the judgment is yours or not. So if you judge yourself, I don't work hard enough. Do I really feel that about myself? Or who said it to me? Who told me? Was it my dad? Was it my uncle? Was it my grandfather? Was it my mom? Did somebody tell me I don't work hard enough? Okay, my dad did, for example. My dad said I don't work hard enough. So then, at, after that has been decided, you get to challenge it. You get to say, do I feel I don't work hard enough? Well, I put in this much overtime every week, or I work this many hours every week, and actually I'm finding I'm working too much. So then you realize that no, I don't really feel that I don't work hard enough. I work too hard sometimes, and I work too much at the expense of my health, at the expense of maybe your family, at the expense of whatever it is that's being neglected because you're working so hard. So, okay, we've decided that it's not our judgment, and we've also learned that we've challenged it if we really feel that way. So, what's the next step? The next step is when that feeling shows up or that judgment comes into play, or like if you feel guilty because you're taking a day off from work, or that you're not putting 10, 20, 30 hours of overtime in that week, there's a certain feeling, a certain judgment, or a certain guilt that comes with it. You have the ability at that point to say, wait, let's look at how we did work, how hard we did work this week. That feeling of guilt is not necessary. It's just that trained reaction from taking care of myself when I want time off. And here's the key to all of it. We have the ability to challenge every judgment. And we also have the ability to shift our thinking. Now, I know you're going to say, oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. Yeah, it's fucking hard. But if you don't try, how are you ever going to shift? How are you going to shift that judgment if you don't start somewhere? It doesn't mean you're going to catch everyone. Start with one. And, it could be when a moment happens that brings that feeling up, you ask yourself, how can I change my reaction to this situation? If you're feeling guilty, how can I change that guilt to understanding, to compassion, to empathy, to support in taking care of yourself? Like, yeah, good job for making yourself a priority. You had every moment have that ability to shift that perception or that feeling or that emotion. But you really have to begin with identifying that. A personal one for me is the idea of, like I was using, like, I don't work hard enough. My whole life from the age of 14 to now, I mean, I've worked. And most of my life, my young adult life, I worked 2 jobs because I just didn't feel I was working hard enough. But yet at the expense of my health, because I'm working so much, I don't have the time to go to the gym or the time to come home and meal prep because I come home when I'm going to bed. That there's a certain level of, work became my priority, and my health has suffered. It's still suffering from it. And, it made me realize that, okay, why do I feel I'm not working hard enough? Where did I get it from? Can I challenge it? Do I find myself feeling that I work hard enough? And, when I really worked through that, I realized, wow, I work hard. I work so hard on so many things. And I'm like, well, really, the guilt is unnecessary. I don't need to feel guilty. I've worked really hard. And when we can shift that thinking, we shift the charge around that situation, around work. Like for me, it was shifting the charge around how much I work. It was about shifting the charge around what I do and how much effort I put into things. Whereas before, I wouldn't listen to my body. When I was tired, fatigued, or I was in some chronic pain, I would just ignore it and just keep moving forward. But when I sat down and challenged it and discovered all of this, I have the ability now to say, I'm hurting a lot. Maybe I need to not do overtime, or maybe I need to take a sick day or take some sick time to rest because it is important to my well-being. So it is imperative, I think, for our relationships with ourselves, for our happiness, for our ability to connect with the idea of joy and fulfillment and success. Part of that is by challenging all the things that have been given to us by others. That's when we can step out to be authentic. Because, even though this year I really pushed myself to be as authentic as I can, there is still a part of me that isn't, because I still have old programming. Now, as I work through it, my authenticness, it steps out in bigger ways, but I'm still struggling with that thought of those other programmings that I'm still working through. So I know I say so a lot, but I just really wanted to share this message with you guys because I really found it profound this week. Well, it wasn't this week. It was like 2 weeks ago, that I sat down and I really gave myself the ability to comfort myself. A situation happened that left me horribly upset and horribly just back in old patterns, back in feelings I haven't felt since I was a kid, and it brought me right back instantly. And I had two choices. I could allow my brain to create more trauma around the situation by telling me all these stories of what could have happened and what people said and what I didn't know that they said. Our brain keeps us safe. It's a powerful tool. So it creates these ideas that could be true or false, but we don't know. But our brain really likes to kind of create safety around it. So it prevents us from even going back to that situation. So in that moment, I had that choice: allow my brain to take the crazy train and take me into a space of fear and a space of feeling inadequate, a space of feeling like I'm not enough or that I'm too much or whatever it was. Or I could stop that crazy train and at least say, well, no, you're wrong, to refute all of this lies that my brain is trying to tell me. And when I allowed myself to comfort myself and to kind of talk myself down out of this situation, it was like, oh, I reacted so much differently. I reacted so much more positive. I didn't feel further traumatized because my brain wanted to continue to make the trauma bigger around the situation than what it needed to be. And that's when we diffuse energy. That's when we diffuse the bombs, so to speak. When we're growing and we're learning about ourselves, there's all these little landmines we come up with, and we hit one and it's like a bomb goes off in our lives and we can't cope or we can't deal with it. And sometimes when our brain has created those bombs about these situations because of what it's told yourself. And so when we can have the ability to say, no, you're wrong, you don't know, it's not true. And to comfort ourselves and to really not create more negative energy around the situation, it creates freedom. It creates the idea of, I don't have to relive this point again because I've learned how to cope with it. I've learned how to work myself through this situation without creating more levels of emotional trauma. So I hope that all made sense. And if you have any questions or if you need help unpacking some of your own judgments, you know where to find me. Facebook, amyhedman.com. Send me a message. Shoot me a message on Facebook, wherever you know how to find me, wherever you connect with me. And just know that you're loved and you are so fucking enough. You are so enough for this world. And you are just perfect where you're at right now, no matter what you're working on to grow or change or shift. You are perfect and right where you need to be. All my love. Take care.